Hello, good evening. Good evening. Who is this? We are not supposed to say each other's names here. But let's agree that you say Mim and I say Aleph. I don't like the letter Aleph. What do you mean? Because first of all, life is not that hard. I am fine, thank God. And you? Not fine. Not fine at all. I am here to listen to you. I wish you could talk to me. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. I am Olivert James, and this is the Narrator's Program. A new story, and this story is fictional. And it doesn't represent reality. That's what I am saying. And you remember that I said that it doesn't represent reality. So it turns out that it represents reality. I didn't say that. Okay, let's go. The story is from the book of Olivert James and from the review of Olivert James. Let's see what this story says. Abdul Rahman Fawad, I am 25 years old. I live alone in my grandfather's apartment in New Egypt. I work at a charity organization. My job is to answer the phone calls that come to me, which are from people who want to talk to me, but I can't find anyone to listen to them. So they call me, or more precisely, they call the organization's numbers, and I or others answer them. Most of the people who call us are on the verge of committing suicide. And this is something we are used to. Our role is to save them and try to keep them away from what they think. And thank God, I was able to keep many people away from this thought. One day, I went to the organization as usual, sat down at my office and started answering the phone calls. The first phone call was from a woman who had ended her relationship with her fiancé and felt lonely. But thank God, she wasn't thinking about committing suicide at all. The next phone call was from an old man who kept telling me about the bad treatment he was getting from his children, and how lonely he felt that made him wait for death every day. But death never came. This man offered to change his routine and try to get out of the house, and told me that he really tried everything he could. But in the end, he comes home and feels lonely, as if she was missing him. Honestly, I couldn't offer him many solutions, but he took advantage of the distance and asked me to make one request. He asked me to promise him one phone call a day, reassure him about it, and make him feel that he is not alone. And of course, I promised him. And thank God he was happy. After this phone call, I put the phone on the desk, and I don't know why, but I remembered my grandfather, may God have mercy on him. The day he died, I also felt lonely like this old man. I wasn't with him that day. I remember that I was traveling with my friends in Masyaf, and after 4 days I came back. When I entered the apartment, I smelled a very bad smell. I went to the living room, and then I saw my grandfather's head appearing from the chair he was sitting on. The smell got worse when I got closer. I turned around, and then I found his corpse. I was shocked by the sight, and I got closer to him and I shook him, but for no reason. He had a book in his hand to read before he died. And strangely, when I tried to remove this book from his hand, I felt that it was firmly attached to him, and it was difficult to remove it from his hand. I took the book without looking at it, and I put it on the table, and then I took out my phone and I called one of my friends. He came to me quickly, and we started to take out the death certificate and the death certificate, and then the burial and the funeral. And from that day on, I lived alone. I heard my colleague's voice in the office next to me, and he yelled at me, "Abdul Rahman." Yes, Abdul Rahman. Yes, Aslam, what is it? No, I didn't find you happy. I just wanted to comfort you. Oh, for the sake of your family. You've always been kind, Aslam. Tell me the truth. How are the calls going today? Yes, thank God. It's quiet so far. May God bless you, and may today pass without losses. Oh God, Aslam, oh God. I turned around and looked at the screen, and I started receiving calls again, and there are no 5 minutes and the phone is ringing. Hello, good evening. Good morning. The time now is 12 o'clock. Do you know how many people are watching? If I told you, what would you do? I was very surprised by his words. I thought he was crazy or unbalanced. But that's normal. As I told you, most of the people who talk to us are on the verge of suicide. And the suicide victim knows that these are his last moments. So it's normal for him to say everything he wants, even if the words have nothing to do with each other. That's why I took a breath and responded to him calmly. I'm fine, thank God. How are you? What do you like to do? If you don't want to say your name, it's up to you, no problem. My name is Samir. How can I help you, Mr. Samir? How do you prepare for death? There is no reason in the world that can make you commit suicide. Can you explain it to me more? Mr. Samir, if there's something bothering you, tell me. I just wanted to be someone in the world who shares the moment with me. Please, Mr. Samir, don't make any decisions while you're in this situation. I responded to him with mixed tears. I didn't choose anything. What book is this? As soon as he said the name, I felt like I knew him or saw him before. The name wasn't strange. I kept quiet for a few seconds, and then I asked him, Amita, what book is this? Who is Shiva? Shiva is your name. His words were welcoming. My body shook for a few seconds, and I tried to change the flow of the conversation or take it the other way. I asked him, what do you do for a living? Please, Mr. Samir, there's nothing you're saying for sure. I'm sure you were having a bad time, and you needed to talk to someone or change the mood and meet new people. His voice had changed this time. At least this sentence made him sound more confident than himself. Unlike the awkward personality who was talking to me from the beginning of the conversation. I tried to make sure when I asked him, what were you saying? The voice wasn't clear. Humans don't always kill. There was a chill in my body as soon as he finished his sentence. Despite that, he continued his conversation and told me, you're trying to save poor people even though you're more poor than them. His voice had a voice that drew me to him. I felt like I wanted to hear him more. You need someone to talk to. Tell me what's wrong. I miss my grandpa. I miss being alone without him. I've lived with him for years since my parents died. He was everything to me. Then he suddenly died. He lived a stable life just like me. But humans can't survive. I didn't object. I knew we were all going to die. I can't continue on my own. But you're not alone. You have a great treasure. A treasure? What kind of treasure? Don't tell me it's... After that sentence, I heard a scream on the phone. The person who was talking to me was crying. No, don't hang up. Don't leave me alone. I don't want to die. The silence subsided, and a minute later, the line was cut. I turned off the phone and left the office. I stood in the street, trying to understand what was going on. Suddenly, I remembered the last scene between me and my grandfather. I saw the picture of the book in his hand. I saw the word Amita on the book. I stopped a taxi and asked him to take me home. On the way, I talked to Slim and told him I wasn't going to work today. On the way, I was thinking, why does my grandfather keep a book like this? I've never seen him read magic books or books related to jinn and spirits. I arrived home and quickly went to the apartment. I opened the door and ran to the office. I was looking for the book he was talking about, but the books were gone and the book wasn't there. Something was wrong. I threw all the books on the floor, sat next to them, and started looking for it again. But it wasn't there either. I looked around the office, maybe it was behind it, but unfortunately it wasn't there. I sat on the chair, wondering where it went. I thought I left it in the office and no one would come in. Where did it go? I sat on the floor and looked at the office. I saw something like a piece of wood or buttons next to the office. I ran to it and I found it like buttons, but nothing strange happened. I sat down, laughing, and told myself, it can't be a secret room. But when I sat down, a sentence came to my mind. Open the office and you'll reach it alone. What does it mean? It means open the office. I went to the back of the office and I found out it was a piece of wood. I looked for a way to open the office, but I couldn't find a solution. So I got a hammer and I broke the wood wall. But when I came back, I found my phone ringing. It was my friend Walid. Yes, Walid. Come quickly, Abdul Rahman. Yes, son. I'll try to call you back. I left the phone, and I'll be with you. I threw the hammer on the books and went to Walid. I called him again, and he told me to go to his uncle's house. I got there and I found a lot of police cars and a police car next to them. I ran to the stairs, but before I got to the second floor, there were two policemen, and they were carrying Uncle Walid. Walid and his father, they were both injured. We all got out of the car, and when they got in, they closed the door and moved the car. Walid and I were standing there. I looked at Walid's father, and I said to him, "God bless you, uncle." I looked at Walid, and I said to him, "Pull yourself together, Walid." He hugged me and cried, "Samir is dead, Abdul Rahman. Samir is dead. I can't believe it. He is still in his youth." At that moment, Walid's father approached him, and he said to him, "Pull yourself together, Walid. We know you were friends, but this is God's will." I asked his father to take me and sit in the car and try to slow down a bit, away from the crowd and the police. I got to the car, and I found him giving me keys and asking me to drive him around. I drove the car, and after 5 minutes, he looked at me and said to me, "I can't believe Samir is dead. We were doing everything together. He was my brother, not my uncle. He was still in his youth and he was sitting with me." I said to him, "God have mercy on him, and pray for him." I turned the car around and took the road to the other house. We got to Walid's uncle's apartment. The police were still there. The officer let us in, and then he asked me, "Who are you?" "I'm Abdulrahman Fawad, Walid's friend." "Who brought you here?" Walid replied, "I'm the one who called him to be next to me in a situation like this." "Ah, okay. Go sit next to your mother. I don't want to bother you." "Okay." The officer was looking at me, and I didn't understand why. We sat there for 15 minutes until he came and sat in front of the three of us. Walid's father said to him, "Are you saying that your brother has no enemies?" "No, sir. Samir has always been himself, and people used to call him with respect and manners." "No, sir." The officer was also looking at me in a way that made me nervous. He looked at me in doubt, and then asked me, "What's wrong, Abdulrahman?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "No, you're not. Why are you so tense?" "I'm not tense or anything. I'm just not used to the police and the investigation." "Ah, where do you work?" "Where do you work, right?" "I work at a charity." "What do you do?" "I receive calls from people who want someone to listen to them and talk to them without knowing who they are. I help people." He smiled and then said to me, "So you make money so you can listen to people?" "That's great." "Sir, I don't like people making fun of my work. And what I do is not a small thing. There are many people that you or one of your colleagues would have killed if I had been there and answered their calls. You're a hero in the shadows. It's okay." "Why were you nervous when you heard Samir's name?" "Why would I be nervous? I don't know him, and I've only seen him once or twice when I was passing by Walid, and he was there by chance." I had a moment of contemplation, and my eyes were on my hand that I was shaking from the tension. Then I shook my head, and he said, "I believe you. I believe you." I turned to him and continued talking to him and asked him a few questions until I said to him, "Can I leave?" He said, "Yes, you can leave. If you don't want to be with your friend, you can leave." "Thank you." I said to Walid, "I have to leave, and I'll come back tomorrow." Walid was surprised, especially that he didn't leave me the day my grandfather passed away. He didn't say anything, and he shook his head, and I said, "I'll get out with the elevator." I waited until he got there, and the door closed and he moved. I felt like there was someone with me in the cabin, but I didn't see anyone. Suddenly, all the light went out, and the elevator stopped. At that moment, I heard a strange noise. I could feel the hot air as if someone was spinning around me, so much so that I was spinning with him. I pushed. The light then began to flicker, and as I turned to the mirror, I saw someone, but he wasn't in the mirror. He was standing next to me, and his reflection was in the mirror. I looked next to me quickly, but there was no one. I looked at the glass again, and I found him standing next to me, reaching out his hand and writing on the glass. He was writing the word Amita. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't take it, and I fell into the cabin. When I got up, I found myself sitting on a chair in Samir's apartment, and the officer was sitting in front of me. I looked at him in amazement, so I looked at him and smiled, and he said to me, "Thank God you're safe." "Hello, sir. Why am I back here again? You didn't even leave to come back." "I didn't leave. I thought I asked your permission to leave. Then I said hi to Walid and left." "No, that didn't happen. You asked me to drink a cigarette in front of the apartment door, and then we heard you scream, and when we got out, we found you lying on the ground, in front of the elevator door. Don't you think something like this happened?" "The elevator?" "Yes, I think I was in the elevator for the last time, and there was what?" "Nothing. Nothing. Nothing. Huh? Okay, look. I'll let you go around and around from now on. But if you don't tell me everything that's going on right now, you'll see my other face and you won't like it. There's nothing at all to say. What's your relationship with Samir? Without going around and around. I didn't have a chance to escape, and that's why I told him what happened in the phone call. He was listening to me very carefully. And after I finished, he said to me, I mean, you knew all this and you were quiet since then? Tell me. Your phone calls are recorded, aren't they? Yes, of course. And with me, he heard this phone call. Okay. We went to the university, and the officer went to the manager and asked him to listen to the phone call. And of course, the manager agreed. We sat down at the computer, and each of us put on the headphones and turned on the phone call. But this phone call, listen to it. Hello, good evening. I mean, good morning. It's now 12:30. I mean, we're in the middle of something. I'm sorry. Every day, millions of teachers died and I'm not satisfied. I'm upset about one of them. I stood there for a minute, not knowing anything. Of course, I didn't do that. And why is that? Because we don't feel each other. The financial conflicts they imposed on us made us live in a big mess. None of us is free to look to the person next to us. I mean, if you agree, I'm fine, thank God. How are you? How do you like to be called? If you don't want to say your name, go ahead. No problem. My name is Samir. How can I help you, Mr. Samir? You won't be able to help me with anything. Until now, the recording of the phone call was over. The officer looked at me with surprise and asked me, where is the phone call? I don't know. What do you mean? I don't know. I'm not in charge of recording the phone calls. I told you everything I know, but I don't know how to delete the phone call. He got angry and asked the manager about recording the phone calls. After a long search, they couldn't figure out how the phone calls were deleted. It was a long time and I was so tired, I slept in the office because he refused to let me go. In the end, he was convinced that I had no fault in deleting the phone call. He finally allowed me to go back home, but only if I was in front of him at any time. I entered the apartment door, and I felt tired all over my body. I walked to the chair in the living room, and I threw myself on it. I cut the pile of books in front of me. Then I remembered what I was doing before my parents called me. I recalled everything that happened in my mind, and then I got up, entered my room, and sat in front of the computer. I wrote Amita in the search. More than one link appeared. I clicked on one of them, and it was written as follows. Amita is an ancient magic book. It spread around the legends. Among them is a legend that says that everyone who opens the book or reads it is considered to be preparing for death in any way. It is said that the book has many pages, but you only see specific pages written for you only. There is another legend that says that Amita makes a person discover his truth and sees the worst of what he has done. He punishes himself with death before he is killed. Does this mean that my grandfather died a suicide? And Samir too? Wait a minute. How did the book get to Samir? Walid. I have to follow Walid. I grabbed my phone and called him quickly. He didn't answer. I got out of the car to go home. I called him all the way, but he didn't answer. I got home, rang the doorbell, and his mother opened the door. I asked her where Walid was. She said he was in his room. I asked her if I could come in. She said that he didn't eat since yesterday and refused to eat. She was upset with Samir. I asked her to let me in. She walked with me to the bedroom door. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. She said to Walid, open the door. What you are doing is forbidden. Your uncle died. Why would you hurt my heart? Open the door. Open the door, son, for my sake. Your friend Abdulrahman is here. He wants to see you. Walid didn't answer. I was getting more worried. I told her that I would break the door if something happened to him. She put her hand on her face in terror and said, my son. She went back and I began to close the door with my shoulder until it opened. Then I found Walid on the bed. He was sitting with his face covered with tears. He was looking at something that I couldn't see. I approached him. He raised his head and looked at me. I turned around to see what he was looking at. He was looking at a book hanging on the mirror in front of him. I tried to open the book, but he ran at me. He grabbed my hand and said, don't read it, Abdulrahman. Don't read it. I asked him, shocked, how did you get this book? He looked at me and said, forgive me, Abdul Rahman. I stole it the day your grandfather died. I felt that I wanted to read it. Of course, you weren't in a hurry to ask for a favor like this at the time. I went to the library and took it. That night, when I came back, I found Samir with us. I put the book in the library, left Samir, and went to the bathroom. When I came back, I didn't find him or the book. The strange thing is that when I asked him about the book, he said he didn't see it. Until the day he died. When I went, I found the book in the library. I took it and hid it. It was the only thing I had left of it. Today, I came to read it and I found a note in it. I grabbed Walid and didn't continue. I asked him, what's written in it, Walid? Written? At that moment, Walid came back a lot. Then a white mist came out of his nose. He fell on the bed. His mother screamed while she was running to him. I got closer to him. I found a blank sheet of medicine next to him on the computer. I called the ambulance in its turn as soon as the police was notified. At that moment, I found the same officer in front of me again. He took Walid and turned him into a medical patient. After Walid's mother told me what happened, the officer memorized the book and asked me to go with him because he needed to talk to me. I went with him, and he asked me, what brought you there before the accident? I was trying to save him, but I was late. How did you know he was going to commit suicide? I didn't know he was going to commit suicide, but I knew he was going to die if he read the book. When I came, he was also reading it. He committed suicide, but the book was in front of his office. He was surprised and he said, what is in this book that made the one who reads it die? Honestly, I don't know. But what I know is that this book was in my grandfather's hand when he died. It was with Samir in the apartment when he died. It was also with Walid. Where did your grandfather get this book from? I don't know either. You don't know everything. This is the truth, sir. I really don't have any answers to the questions you're asking me. Ever since my grandfather died, I haven't seen this book. After a long discussion, the officer made sure that he didn't have any useful information. Where is it exactly? He searched for the truth behind the book. After a while, I went home. I went in and sat in the middle of the books again. Although I was tired and wanted to sleep, I didn't know what got me in the middle of the books and slept in them. Where was I when I woke up? I realized that I couldn't let the world be ruined like this. I decided to get up and put everything in its place. But when I looked at the books, I saw a strange black dot. It was a marble in the middle of the books. I opened it and started reading, until I reached a page with the following words written on it. October 18th, 1998 today. The most exciting thing happened in my life. I was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He forced me to do this. I asked him to stay away from her, but he insisted and went to marry her behind my back. It was me, my dream of becoming the biggest jeweler in the country. At the end of time, my daughter marries a boy from my son. Let him rest in peace in prison. I know that my daughter is upset with me, but it doesn't matter. In 2 days, she will know that I did this for her benefit. And Abdul Rahman will be raised in a clean environment, away from his father's deceitful parents. And when he finds out the truth one day, he will thank me. He will thank me that I saved him from the loss that he was going to live with his father and his family. I flipped the page and it was written on the other page. Yesterday was the worst day of my life. My daughter committed suicide after she found out that Fawad died in prison. I was upset that she couldn't understand my love for her. She couldn't realize that I did all this for her. And she thought that I was afraid of my money from Fawad. May God have mercy on him. Abdul Rahman is the only one I have left. But I can't tell him that his mother committed suicide and his father is in prison. Because of this, I will tell him that they died in an accident. And because of this, you killed Abdul Rahman? He couldn't live without me. Why did you give him the book? The table? I thought that I would return the smell that was with my father. I stretched his head to make sure that I was in the bathroom. And when he woke up, does he need to do all this to steal a book? He didn't ask you for it. How did you manage to fix your arrival date with his death date? Did you make him open the book? How? It's not up to you. Okay, Atel. Leave him for the time that the poison will start to work. What poison? Halwasa. And the last page opens straightly. Okay, and how does the poison reach them? I want to open my tongue to open them from each other. Okay, and how did you show them their mistakes? Okay, and Samir? Samir didn't do his math. But he did the same as Walid does. So he remembered that. Okay, and the links on the internet that say that this book is cursed? That's the only thing I want from the book. Because if someone... How do you deal with this evil? My mom and dad's memories don't bother me. I should have believed that the way is the only way to pay the price. And that's why I arrived. Why are you talking to me and telling me all this even though you know that the phone call is being recorded? What is this? And why did you choose the fate that you lived to save people from? How did you read your pages? Wasn't the book with the officer? So the officer also died? After Abdul Rahman finished his sentence, I didn't hear his voice again. I tried to contact him a lot, but it turned out that the agent was working and he hung up on him. I transferred the phone call to you exactly as it happened. And that's after I reported it to the police and the phone call was saved as an evidence of a crime for a self-accused judge. And that's the end of the story. I hope you liked it. I'd like to thank Olivert James for writing the story and I'd like to thank for reviewing it. I'd also like to thank you for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to like and share. Write us your opinion in the comment section and then join the family group narrator to watch the episodes. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and activate the notification bell to receive all new episodes. That's all. See you in the next episode. Good night.